For more than 40 years, the Classic Touring Car Club has been organising race meetings that feature some of history's most evocative saloon cars. From the mighty American horsepower of Ford Falcons and Chevrolet Camaros, through to nimble Austin Minis and beautiful Alfa Romeos, there's something here for every car enthusiast. The club's latest festival of classic touring cars is being held at Silverstone, with 4 different races and a mouth-watering variety of cars spanning more than 60 years of motorsport heritage. We begin with the oldest generation of cars and the Paul Inch Engine Services Pre-66 division. It features an eclectic field of cars divided into different subcategories based on engine size, giving everyone the chance to compete for prizes, regardless of how much horsepower they have on tap. Although admittedly not one of the fastest, this 1-litre Morris Minor, shared between brothers Mark and Andrew Cross, has a very successful competition record.
We've had it for 30 years, yes. We've raced this little car for more than half its life, really. We actually bought it as a race car. It had already been raced for about 15 years, even then. So it's got a long history. And in fact, in this championship, I won the championship in '91 and in '93 in this car, up against the big Jags and all the other cars that were racing at the time. And it still goes well.
And it's even been driven by one of the stars of the current British touring car era.
We've had Andy Jordan drive it at Goodwood, which was absolutely amazing. And we actually had Paul O'Neill drive it as well. And it's still in one piece, amazingly. Thank you, Paul.
The previous day's qualification races had been held in some extreme wet weather, but that had negated the need for huge amounts of power, meaning that the top 10 had featured no fewer than 6 minis, including the number 5 car of Andy Messam.
It's a 1960 Mini. I've been racing it with this club for 20 years. It's just like go-karts. If you're brave enough to chuck it in, generally it'll sort itself out. So it's just a confidence to chuck the thing in and see what happens. One thing will be ready, they better see where we're going, because I don't think anybody could see yesterday. You're lucky to follow a red light. I wasn't lighting the guy in front.
The cars contesting the first race of the day were led around the formation lap by the black Morris Minor, made famous by last year's champion, Tony Preston, who sadly passed away at the end of 2017. A fitting tribute to a great friend of the club. With the grid based on the results of the previous day's qualification race, it was the Mini Cooper of Jonathan Lewis starting from pole alongside David Hall's Ford Lotus Cortina. Row 2 featured 2 more minis, Paul Inch and Tom Bell, with a similar machine of Dan Lewis 5th and the Ford Lotus Cortina of Roger Stanford, rounding out the top 6. You're on board with the pole sitter Jonathan Lewis as the revs rise, the clutch drops and the race gets underway here at Silverstone. It looks like a decent getaway for Jonathan, and Tom Bell alongside him has dropped back in the other Mini, so it's going to be Roger Stanford, I think, is going to squeeze through alongside David Hall for second. This is the onboard from Michael Sheraton, and the Ford Falcon there of Alan Greenhall getting alongside, having to go out wide is Michael Sheraton here. Oh, and a spin for Alan Greenhall on the exit to turn 1 at Copse Corner, and around goes the Falcon. So it's Lewis in the lead, the white Lotus Cortina of David Hall second, and then it's close for third, 3 abreast in fact, just behind the Michael Sheraton in the Ford Anglia. It's the pale blue Mini of number 71 that's got through to third place, Dan Lewis, as Michael wrestles the wheel here on this still damp circuit. Then you've got 54 Tom Bell, who's dropped from second to fourth. Then it's Roger Stanford just ahead in the green and yellow Ford Lotus Cortina. And there was an absentee, just to note, from the second row of the grid. Paul Inch never made it to the start line. And look, both the Minis have now got past David Hall. So from 5th on the grid, number 71 Dan Lewis up to second. Then it's Tom Bell in third. Then it is David Hall, and then this squabble between a sideways Michael Sheraton in the blue Ford Anglia and Roger Stanford, who was as high as third earlier on in this lap, but might be 6th by the end of it. Now back on board with Michael Sheraton as they make their way through Woodcut Corner at the end of lap number 1 over the start-finish line. And look how sideways he is, working at the wheel here on the curbs. It's treacherous. He's got the inside line though, and watch for the blue Ford Anglia here, coming alongside David Hall's Lotus Cortina and going through to gain the place. So at the end of all that squabbling, he finds himself in 4th place, then he runs out way wide coming out of Copse Corner. Back on board with Alan Greenhall, charging his way back through the field. He dropped from 10th to 15th after that lap one spin. Here comes the Falcon up the inside of Paul Cooper's Ford Cortina to gain another one. So that's 2 more places recovered. And look at him scything his way back through the field in that hugely powerful Falcon. And this is a replay of the start on board with Alan. Lots of wheel spin for the blue Ford Anglia of Michael Sheraton just ahead, going up through the gears for Alan, and then he squeezes down the inside of the Anglia, almost clipping the wall and the barrier, so he's taking a very tight line and having to steer more than he wanted to, and then the back end snaps around, and on the damp track he's a passenger once that happens. Around he goes once, twice, and onto the grass, and lucky not to be collected. End of lap 2, Jonathan Lewis crosses the line, 4.3 seconds clear of Dan Lewis, and 9/10 quicker on that lap alone. Dan, though, is pulling away from Tom Bell in 3rd place. He was nearly a second quicker than the car behind. So the top 3, the gap's opening up. But that's certainly not the case further back. From 12th down to 16th, there are just a couple of seconds separating 5 cars. There is Michael Foley's Morris Minor in 16th place. At the head of that group, the Hillman Imp of number 48, Freddie Brown. And then you've got in 13th place, just ahead, Luke Wilson in the Austin A40, been overtaken there by Paul Cooper. Meanwhile, there's the Mini of Tom Bell in 3rd place. He has got to keep an eye on his mirrors because Michael Sheraton in the Ford Anglia and the hugely experienced Roger Stanford in the Lotus Cortina are keeping tabs of him. Back with Alan Greenhall then, who's made his way back up into the top 10 now after a couple of laps of recovery, but the back end of the Falcon skips around again, and it's another spin, I'm afraid, for Alan. That is down at Beckett's, and he has to wait for a gap in the traffic to rejoin. 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th places, all going by him. Alan, a regular race winner in pre-66s, but unfortunately a bad race for him today. And there then is Michael Sheraton in the blue Ford Anglia. Back into that car, dancing wide. It's great to watch. This is the onboard footage of him now going through Woodcut Corner, closing up to the 3rd place Mini of Tom Bell ahead, but bringing with him Roger Stanford. He's showing his nose here, but he's a bit too far back, so 3rd, 4th and 5th will stay as they are. And then we've got a good battle going on here for 6th place. Neil Bray in the number 76 Mini Cooper, just ahead of the 57 David Hall-driven Ford Lotus Cortina, which was running 2nd briefly at the start of the race, but now down to 7th spot. Back on board with Michael Sheraton then as he makes his way through Maggots and into Beckett's and loses a place. That's for 4th, and that is Roger Stanford coming through. He's all over the curbs, though, on the way through the right hand of the car, dancing around. Same is true of Michael Sheraton as he gets on the throttle. So good move, that, from Roger Stanford. And here comes the Falcon again. He's up and down this race like a yo-yo. His next target is to try and find a way past Luke Wilson. He's already picked off the black Morris Minor of Michael Foley and the maroon Morris of Patrick Harris. So if he can get past Luke Wilson on the exit to the corner here, he will be up to 12th place. We can see the car skipping and dancing around. 5-litre Ford Falcon, a real handful in these conditions. There, having dropped back after a spin, but recovering, is Andrew Cross in the Morris Minor Bluebell, still suffering with the misfire issues, unfortunately, as the race leaders coming up to lap the back markers now. So over the line, Jonathan Lewis, more than 6 seconds back now in 2nd place, but comfortable is Dan Lewis. And there, Roger Stanford up to 3rd place. And in the background, Michael Sheraton is there in 4th place. What then has happened to Tom Bell, the Mini that was running ahead of them both in 3rd place? Looks like it has fallen down the order as Roger Stanford gets sideways on the exit to Copse Corner. Here's a replay on board with Michael Sheraton, and it's about to reveal the answer. Tom Bell's Mini had already lost a place, and there it was, pulling off at Brooklands Corner. So Tom, from the front row of the grid, I'm afraid, out of the race. This is the battle for 9th place. The Ford Anglia of Martin Reynolds just ahead of that blue and white Hillman Imp of Freddie Brown as the race leader starts to lap the back markers. That is him putting a lap on Patrick Harris's Morris Minor in 14th place, working away beautifully at the wheel of that Mini through Brooklands. It's the first weekend out for Jonathan in the car since he bought it, and it looks like he's going to get a double victory here at Silverstone as we potentially see a change for 9th. Yes, we do. The Hillman Imp up the inside, and that's Freddie Brown ahead of Martin Reynolds if he can stay tidy on the exit, which it looks like he does. Jonathan Lewis's next target is to put a lap on the Alfa Romeo Sprint of John Everard, running in 13th place. Will he get there before Copse Corner? Yes, he'll fling the Mini up a tiny gap, and through he goes. No surprises to see Minis going well in damp conditions. Of course, they were famous for their exploits in the Monte Carlo Rally in the 1960s, famously that victory for Paddy Hopkirk in 64. Now, that's number 5. Catching up to number 76 for 6th place. So Andy Messam catching up to the similar Mini Cooper of Neil Bray. and they're coming up to some traffic as well. This is them towards Copse Corner. Who's got the inside line? It's Andy Messam who's going to get his nose in front, and so onto the last lap of the race. Neil Bray's got to try and find a way back. He has a nose at the inside, then he flings it to the outside. They're coming down towards Beckett's and all this traffic, so that could be interesting. We're going to see them darting and weaving their way through. Michael Sheraton has got a 10-second penalty for track limits, but it won't affect his 4th place overall. He's got half a lap to go. Here come the minis. Andy Messam still just ahead of Neil Bray here as they come up to Luke Wilson's Ford Anglia. Meanwhile, it's into the final corner for the final time, and Jonathan Lewis is going to take the checkered flag to win the Paul Inch Race Engines Pre-66 division. But what about this squabble for 6th place? Andy Messam still fending off Neil Bray, having overtaken him. They're going round Patrick Wilson's Morris Minor now. Neil Bray's going to try and sneak up the inside. No, there's no way through there. The Morris Minor's going to make him go out wide. So Andy Messam should just be able to hang on to this. That said, Neil is coming back at him. There is the flag, but it is 6th place to Andy Messam. Confirmation of the result, with Jonathan Lewis finishing 6.7 seconds clear of Dan Lewis. Roger Stanford wins Class F in 3rd place overall, with Michael Sheraton, David Hall and Andy Messam completing the top 6. Neil Bray was 7th, followed by class winners Alan Greenhall and Freddie Brown, with Martin Reynolds also inside the top 10.
We were unsure before the race whether to go with wet or dry, and I'm glad we went with wet, and the car was really good on the first few laps, as you probably saw, but then 6 laps in, without a doubt, it needed to really be on the dry settings because she was pushing on too much, but obviously I'd kept the gap, so I was lucky in that respect.
Our second race is for contemporary classics built prior to 2011, and the classic Thunder Saloons will feature some mighty horsepower.
It's a 1964 Ford Falcon Sprint, 6.1 litres, 660 horsepower, rear-wheel drive, no grip, quite fun. One of the original Monte Carlo cars, and then raced by Terry Stanger in the British Saloon Car Championship. In the 70s, when my dad raced, one of those scared me to death as a young child, so it's Larry, mate, it really is Larry.
Following an excellent drive from 13th to 3rd in the previous day's wet qualification race, Ilse Cox will start from the 2nd row of the grid in her trusty Seat Leon Cupra.
I've had it since 2008-9 now, and yeah, we've updated a few things on it. The suspension, we've got a sequential gearbox on it, which is different to the standard Seats that have got paddle shift changes, so I've got a stick. And it's a great car to drive when it's feeling good. You have to drive it angrily to get the best out of it, really hard. But I love driving it, and I always come out of it with a smile on my face, which is the most important thing.
With a damp but drying track, the drivers faced a tough call on whether to run on wet tyres or slicks. Pole sitter Dale Gent was one of the few to gamble on dry tyres, as was Scott Mathias, winner of the previous day's Burton Power Blue Oval Saloon Series for classic Fords.
We've done nothing with the setup, we've just put a dry tyres on, which I think was probably a bad idea because it's still very greasy out there, but we've gone with that option and just have to see how we get on, see if we can get a bit of heat into the tyres and push on a bit. Apart from one other Sapphire Cosworth in Boss, I'm the only other Cosworth, but there's a couple of Mark II Escorts and Mark I Escorts that are very fast, so yeah, well hopefully, it's quite a bit of competition, but hopefully we can have a race with them.
Here's the grid for a race where tyre choice is likely to be a huge factor. The slick-shod Dale Gent is on pole, while Dave Cockle, Ilse Cox and Paul Hand have all opted for treaded tyres. Scott Mathias is on pole position for the Burton Power Boss Fords, but has opted for the dry tyres. Alistair Camp's Fiesta starts alongside with the Escort Mark II, and Pantelis Christoforou 3rd. And so we ride on board with Ilse Cox, ready for the rolling start from the 2nd row of the grid. Up ahead, the pole sitter Dale Gent in the black Subaru. But what about the tyre choice? Let's wait and find out how much grip he's got at Copse Corner. Through they go into turn 1 at the start of the Classic Thunder race. On board with Dale Gent, and the change of lead comes at turn 1. Dave Cockle with more grip goes through down the inside, and on board with Ilse Cox. She's dropped to 4th, look, because the Audi TT of Paul Hand has snuck through as well. So it's Cockle in the lead, Gent down to 2nd, Paul Hand up to 3rd place. Ilse Cox just behind in 4th place in the Seat, making her way through and out wide. There goes Dale Gent, sliding on the damp patches. Through comes Hand, charging through comes Ilse Cox, and suddenly the pole sitter is down to 4th place. But look, there's a dry line on the straight. He's got more horsepower and he immediately disposes of the Audi, but now he's got to slow the car down. An adventure to find out how much grip Brooklands has got to offer. Gent going out wide, and look at the red Escort of Stuart Day coming charging up the inside of everybody. Also coming through is the Vauxhall Astra of Matthew Booth. So another couple of places lost for Dale Gent, and again he goes out wide. Paul Hand might not have the straight line speed, but he's got more grip at the moment, and the Audi TT comes past. And towards the sharp end of the boss field, 2 Fiestas, old and new, go wheel to wheel. Joe Ferguson out wide in the new shaped Fiesta, the Mark 1 of Dimitris Neofotou. Also joining the party, the red and yellow Escort of Martin Reynolds. Back on board with Dale Gent. Again, he slips wide as back through comes the Audi TT of Paul Hand. There then is the battle for 2nd place. Ilse Cox in the Seat, being hunted down by the fast starting Stuart Day in the Escort there from the 3rd row of the grid, and Matthew Booth just behind in the Vauxhall Astra, the ex-kart race, the ex-British Championship kart racer. There's the Sol Capri in the field, Tom Abbott, who is contesting the Boss Championship run by Burton Pound. You can see he's twitching and sliding as well as he gets on the gas coming out of the drying, but still pretty treacherous section at Beckett's. The race leader, meanwhile, Dave Cockle, has had an excellent start to the race. Not a good start, though, I'm afraid, for that beautiful Ford Falcon, who's all over the place as he tries to get on the throttle there, Andy Wilson. But I think there's a more serious, more severe problem to be going a lap down this early on. So it might be curtains for that one as we go on board with Matthew Booth coming up to lap the Ford Falcon and trying to catch back up to Ilse Cox and Stuart Day, having lost a little bit of ground there, I think, through the traffic. That's an ex-BTCC Vauxhall Astra. It was driven by James Thompson in 2004 for the last few rounds of his championship winning campaign. Alistair Camp, who leads the Boss Blue Oval Saloons, the pole sitter in that category, like the pole sitter in the Classic Thunders. Scott Mathias there in the orange Escort opted for the dry tyres and is struggling at the moment, being harassed by the Fiesta there of Joe Ferguson. So it, at the moment, is the number 45 Fiesta of Alistair Camp in the lead of Boss, from 127 Pantelis Cristoforo in the Escort Mark II and 33 Paul Neville. And then we've got this pair battling away. But as the track dries, it's going to get better and better for those that have opted for the dry tyres if they can stay on track. Now, this is a battle between the Escort of Neil Argrave, 4th in the Boss category, and that Holden Commodore of Paul Eaton, looking spectacular. Ilse Cox in 2nd place, holding on now to the pace of the race leader. So there he is up ahead, Dave Cockle. And look at this, a Fiesta about to overtake a Subaru Impreza. That's the Boss leader, Camp, around the outside of Gent to go 7th overall. It just shows you can have all the horsepower in the world, but if your tyres aren't right, you will go nowhere. There is Matthew Booth, who's getting much, much closer now to the tail of Stuart Day. And after this good start, he's starting to be found out here in terms of his overall race pace. And Matthew Booth with a lovely move, slingshots down the inside into Beckett's corner, and keeps the line on the way out of the turn to make the move stick. 500 horsepower in that ex-BTCC car now. It's been upgraded somewhat. Still a H-pattern gearbox, though, as I'm afraid Andy Wilson's Ford Falcon Sprint grinds to a halt. Now out wide in the background, look, Dale Gent running wide and about to lose another place. Pantelis Cristoforo in the Escort Mark II, 2nd in the Boss class, comes past, but he hasn't got the straight line speed. And they're heading for retirement down the escape route is that Falcon. But up front, this is the battle between 2nd in the Boss class and the Subaru Impreza of the overall pole sitter. Can he hold on to this car, and can it come good for Dale Gent once the track gets dry towards the end of the race? Look how slippy and slidey it still is for Pantelis Cristoforo. Tremendous driving around the outside there to get his nose in front. Dale Gent, though, might be able to come back at him once they charge onto the straight down towards Cobb's Corner. You have to say, given how many damp patches there are, Dale Gent is doing a tremendous job to harness all of that power and keep the car roughly pointed in the right direction. It's a tricky, tricky job, and the back end steps out coming through Cobb's Corner. Then he gets big style out of shape. He goes left, he goes right, he wags the tail of the Subaru Impreza, and somehow he keeps it on the track. Tremendous car control. Further back with a bit less horsepower, Chris Baker in the Ford Escort RS having a good ding-dong here with the older Escort Mark I of Martin Reynolds, who's hunting him down. Those running in the top 6 in the Boss class, that's Neil Argrave, who is now clear of the Holden Commodore and still running in 4th place overall in the Boss category. Is it me though, or is that track starting to look a little bit drier down at Beckett's? Back on board with Matthew Booth and the race leaders now working their way through the traffic. Dave Cockle in the Silver Escort Cosworth is the leader, but they're coming back at him. Look, Ilse Cox closing the gap, and look at that for a fantastic move from Matthew Booth from nowhere, from a long way back, charges down the inside into Copse Corner. He runs out a little bit wide on the exit, but he's got the place. That was a fantastic move, and here's a replay on board with Matthew. Look how far back he was. I think Ilse, to be fair, was slightly off put by the back marker, but from a huge distance back, Matthew Booth proving that the brakes still work absolutely fine on that Vauxhall Astra. There is Dale Gent then, and this time the back end gets even further out of shape, then it snaps back across, and he skids off into the gravel trap. And what a shame for Dale Gent. Just as the track was starting to look like it might come towards him, he's got buried luck in the gravel, and he's moving no further in this race. Heading into the final stages, and Dave Cockle has got his mirrors full now. For the last couple of laps, Matthew Booth in the Vauxhall Astra has been closing the gap, and in a car which helped James Thompson towards his 2004 championship winning campaign. Can Matthew Booth relive those glory years, and can he hunt down the very experienced Dave Cockle? On his own in 5th place after an excellent start, Paul Hand, he got up to 3rd place off the line. He's now working his way through the Boss cars, the Burton-powered Blue Oval Saloon cars, all contesting a close-fought battle. So you've got to be careful through the traffic, and more traffic ahead for Dave Cockle, look. So will this be an opportunity? No, struggling to get a gear, and a bit sloppy on the brakes as well was Matthew Booth. He's got an issue, I think. He still can't get it in gear. Ilse Cox whizzes past to reclaim 2nd spot. So Dave Cockle has got rid of his closest opponent, but he's still got to be ultra careful through the traffic. But he has got a bit more advantage now. Ilse Cox was a couple of seconds further behind Matthew Booth, having lost that 2nd place a few laps ago. In the Blue Oval Saloons, by the way, we've had a change of lead. Alistair Camp has been passed by Pantelis Christoforou. And there's the white and blue escort of number 33, Paul Neville, still running 3rd in that category, about to be lapped by the overall race leader, Dave Cockle. On board with Ilse Cox in the Seat in 2nd place after an excellent race. Matthew Booth really dropping back now and looking like he's struggling into the corners. So I think a braking issue on the Vauxhall Astra right towards the end of the race. And that might have been the cause of him getting fumbling around with the gears at this section where he lost that 2nd place a couple of laps ago to Ilse. So they're in 4th place after a really good start. Stuart Day in the Ford Escort, and he's well clear of the Audi TT of Paul Hand. So on course for a solid 4th place finish. Here's Pantelis Christoforou, leader in the Blue Oval Saloon Series, having caught and passed and now pulled away from Alistair Hand. Alistair has had, though, an excellent drive in the Fiesta, and he'll save that moment passing Dale Gent earlier on. Coming into Luffield and Woodcote then for the final time. Lots of traffic ahead for Dave Cockle, but he's got an advantage. That means he doesn't need to do anything too risky. He sprints for the line, the checkered flag comes out, and Dave Cockle wins the Classic Thunders from Ilse Cox in 2nd place. And Matthew Booth, I think, is just about going to hold on for 3rd. Here are the official race results, with Dave Cockle taking the victory, Ilse Cox a class winner in 2nd place, and Matthew Booth holding on to 3rd. Stuart Day and Paul Hand complete the top 5. In the Blue Oval Saloons, victory goes to Pantelis Christoforou, who finished in 6th place overall. Alistair Camp and Paul Neville complete the Boss podium, from Neil Argrave in 4th and Joe Ferguson in 5th. Let's hear now from our overall race winner.
It was a brilliant race, really, but yeah, it was real hardcore. Weather being what it's been, sun coming out. We thankfully made the right choice. The track was very mixed. There were lots of dry lines, but still lots of wet places. So yeah, I was swerving all over the place trying to keep the tyres cool.
For more than 40 years now, the Classic Touring Car Racing Club has been organising competition events like this, featuring an incredible array of machinery that is beautifully presented and maintained by the group of enthusiasts and specialists who prepare and drive the cars. And it's this attention to detail and quality that first attracted the support of Akzo Nobel and Hammerite.
We've been sponsoring for about 5 years now. It's a real pleasure to be headline sponsor. It's really great to have our brands associated with the classic touring cars. They're enthusiastic, their passion for their racing is fantastic, and it's a really good association with especially Hammerite. and wax oil being underbody seals and the likes of that. And it's great to see them when they get to the end, and the pride and the finish they put on those cars before they go on the track.
Our next race is for Group 1 touring cars built before 1983. The grid features Vauxhall Forenzas, Ford Escorts and Triumph Dolomites, to name but a few. But perhaps the most passionately supported marque would be Alfa Romeo.
There seems to be an Alfa Romeo crowd, yes. They're generally quite a friendly and nice bunch of people. And people sometimes are surprised at people racing Alfas because they've not got the greatest reputation for reliability. But generally, I've found them pretty damn good. Once they're stripped down as race cars, all the silly little things that go wrong with Alfas seem to disappear. So, but yes, interesting cars, and they're a bit different.
Another Alfa to feature on the Group 1 touring car grid will be this glorious Alfetta GTV.
Well, it actually belongs to Richard Melvin, and he bought it years ago, about 10 years ago, and has rebuilt it over a number of years. And it last raced in 1981, TT car. So it's a 2-litre Alfetta in period livery and everything. So it's a proper real car, which is really nice. But we had a number of teething problems yesterday, one of them being the throttle pedal fell off. But we fixed all that, so hopefully we'll start at the back and maybe make some places up.
Up near the sharp end of the grid is experienced racer David Howard, winner of more than 100 races, 82 of them in this Jaguar XJ12. But he's well aware that this is not going to be an easy race.
There's quite a lot of talent in these cars, I can assure you. I would say that Steve Primmett is the most successful championship-winning driver. I don't know how many times he's won champion. He's very good. Watch him. And as is Mark Osborne's been racing longer than me. So yeah. And Alan Greenhall, who also races the Falcon in the historic race. Yeah, there's some old talent here.
As the previous day's winner, Stephen Primmett lines up on pole in his Ford Escort Mark 1, the Jaguar of David Howard alongside. Row 2 features the Dolomite of Mark Osborne and the Forenza of Alan Greenhall. And then it's the Escort of Stephen Cripps and the Golf of Simon Jeffs to complete the top 6. We're all set then for pre-83 Group 1 touring cars. The green flag is waved at the back of the field from the third row of the grid. This is Simon Jeffs in the VW Golf. Off they go then. The green lights go out. And at the head of the field, it is going to be David Howard that leads the way. A good start for the yellow Forenza of Alan Greenhall. Can he get into second place? A very good start as well for the Alfa, the blue and white David Margale's car from the 6th row of the grid. So he's made up good progress early on over the crest. Down towards Beckett's they go. It's Howard from pole position from Osborne. Then in third place, Stephen Primmett on board with Mark Chollerton in the Escort. Look at him flying around the outside of David Margale. He's come all the way from 18th on the grid, but he's taking a wide line into Beckett's. The Escort runs out wide. Right in front of them, looking backwards, it's Garry Fletcher in the Vauxhall Forenza, and there comes Chollerton. He does make it past, and he gains another one up the straight. Back on board with David Margale's going up through the gears, and he's going to lose a place here to the Capri of Mike Haynes on the run into Brooklands. This is the battle for second place, and a very good start for Mark Osborne to get ahead of Stephen Primmett. Stephen Primmett, though, squeezing alongside him with his nose in front on the exit to the turn. These two wheel to wheel as they make their way towards Woodcote Corner. Ride once again with Mark Chollerton, this time gliding around the outside of Peter Winston to gain yet another place on this opening lap. There then is the battle for second place. The white Escort of Stephen Primmett having dropped from pole position down to third place, being frustrated at the moment by Mark Osborne. Mark Chollerton has gone from 18th to 6th on the first lap of the race. His next target, the yellow Forenza of Alan Greenhall. And I think he's going to tick another one off here. He's got a line on the way into the left-hander at Maggots, but it's a right-hander at Beckett's coming up. He's good around the outside, though. Look at him down the gears, hanging onto the wheel, and I think he might have done it. Just outside the top 10, that is the number 28 Chevrolet Camaro of Alan Wayman. Just 5.7 litres of power to try and control as Simon Jeffs in the VW Golf pulls alongside and ahead of David Margale's in the Alfa Romeo to gain a place. So there are the top 3, and it's side by side again for second place. Stephen Primmett up the inside, but right-hander coming up. And guess what? The Triumph Dolomite will have the better line through there, but look at how close they are racing, within centimetres of each other, but no contact. Tremendous driving from these two most experienced drivers. Primmett can see the race leader, David Howard, getting away in the Jaguar, so he's desperate to try and find a way past the Dolomite. He has another look at the inside on the way into Cobb's Corner, but Mark Osborne, he's very good on the brakes and keeps him at bay. Now a replay at the start from Mark Chollerton from the 9th row of the grid. Watch this. A pretty decent start, not a rocket ship start, but then he gets into his momentum. First, he gets past Alan Hersey's Reliant Scimitar, and then he just dives down the inside of two cars, the Golf and the Camaro. He gets past the Escort of Scott Rust on the way through Copse Corner, and he's already gained 5 or 6 places before he gets to Beckett's Corner. There, the race leader, David Howard. The more the two behind fight one another, the more he's able to just get on with the business of getting his head down, putting in some quick lap times, and getting on with developing that lead. Here is the VW Golf at number 4, Simon Jeffs, who had a pretty decent start himself as well. He's onto the tail now of the Capri of Mike Haynes, and closing up as they make their way into Woodcut Corner. He draws alongside here. He's got the inside line coming up for Copse Corner as well, and now he's absolutely neck and neck, but the Capri coming back at him. Mike Haynes, he's going to have to be super brave on the brakes here on the way into Copse Corner. Jeffs hugging the inside curb, but the Capri goes through and up into 9th place. And this is the battle for 11th. David Margales with his nose just in front of the Reliant Scimitar of Alan Hersey. So terrific battles all the way down through the field here. Margales just about getting his nose back in front, but the Scimitar almost had him at Copse Corner. Back down towards Beckett's they go. And these two now dropping away from the yellow Camaro of Alan Wayman in 10th place. Still nose to tail as they go on to the Wellington Straight. Back on board with Simon Jeffs. Can he get this place back for 9th position? He's having a look at the inside into Brooklands Corner. He's got alongside the Capri, and he's got the inside line. Looking back at the pair of them, you can see from Gary Fletcher's Forenza that the VW Golf is through. So looking back from 8th to the new 9th place car, which is already gaining ground. Look, Gary Fletcher coming under big pressure as they head towards the right-hander, flat out at Woodcut Corner, on towards the start-finish straight at the end of another lap. And I think it might be another place gained here if he's got enough grunt in a straight line. Through come Greenhall and Winston in 7th and 8th. What about this battle for 9th? No, the Forenza hangs it around the outside. Brave stuff here from Gary Fletcher, but he goes out wide, right over the curbs, drags it back online. The Capri is coming after them. And then Alan Wayman coming at everybody, trying to get involved with this. Is Chris Snowden dragging the beautiful Alfata up from the back of the grid, gaining good ground here. Looking back once again from Gary Fletcher at Mike Haynes in the Capri, and look at the Camaro in a straight line. They are no match for Alan Wayman, and he just sides past the pair of them. And now Mike Haynes is going to try and have a go into Brooklands Corner. The left-hander coming up, he gets through. The Camaro gets ahead of Jeffs as well, and Simon Jeffs almost loses the back end of the Golf going through the left-hander. So all sorts of changes of position there. Here's a replay. The Camaro had come through, having to go all over the curbs of Simon Jeffs, and he also almost runs into the back of the Camaro. Wow, what a race this is turning into. So the Camaro up into 9th place now. This has become a three-way battle for the final spot in the top 10. Mike Haynes gets there in the number 19 Capri. Gary Fletcher follows him through. Simon Jeffs loses 2 places, but not for the first time. The Forenza runs out wide, and I think the VW might just steal that place back. No such excitement for Stephen Cripps in the number 40 Escort. He runs pretty much on his own in 4th place. He's about 5 seconds clear of Mark Chollerton, but Mark not really closing the gap. So it's still 5th place after that lightning first few laps, having had dramas in the qualification race yesterday. And here we go. This is Winston now up the inside of Greenhall, but wide for the Escort. Can he get it back on the track? Yes, but he falls back behind the yellow Forenza of Alan Greenhall. And what next? Another move from Gary Fletcher, back up the inside of Jeffs in this battle for 10th place. A huge fight between these two, and it's been oh so clean. Terrific driving, 2 completely different types of car, so evenly matched around the Silverstone National Circuit. It is allowing, though, the Capri of Mike Haynes to get away from them. And here is David Margales under fire from Alan Hersey. The Scimitar up the inside, glorious looking car that. They go on the curbs through the left-hander at Brooklands, but through comes Alan Hersey. So David Margales dropping down a position to 12th, just ahead of Lewis Judd. Oh, what a shame. After an unbelievable battle with Gary Fletcher towards the end of the race, the number 4 Simon Jeffs VW Golf is ailing and headed for the pits. But here, is the man that is about to take the race victory. David Howard in the Jaguar XJ12, over 4 seconds clear of this huge battle that's been going on for second between Mark Osborne and Stephen Primmett. Stephen has never been able to get his nose in front. Alongside, yes, but never in front. The checkered flag comes out, and it is victory for David Howard. Second place goes to Mark Osborne, and Stephen Primmett completes the podium. He couldn't be any closer. It's going to be Stephen Cripps, then Mark Cholerton in 4th and 5th positions, but it's still going to be close for 6th place. And here comes Alan Wayman. The Camaro muscles its way past the Forenza. Wayman moves up to 6th ahead of Greenhall, with Peter Winston just behind in 8th place. What a race! So it's career victory number 103 for David Howard, while Mark Osborne comes out on top in that entertaining battle for second with Stephen Primmett. Stephen Cripps, Mark Cholerton and Alan Wayman complete the top 6, ahead of Alan Greenhall, Peter Winston, Gary Fletcher and Class B winner Mike Haynes.
I had to keep on it till the end. You know, it wasn't like, you know, one spin, one anything, and I'd have been out of it. It was a good race. It kept me busy, but I think it was much busier in the Dolomite sprint and the Escort behind me. I think I was quite a busy place to be, but yes, that's back on top, which is nice, to be honest with you.
The last race of the day features touring cars from 3 different time periods: pre-1993, pre-2003 and pre-2005. Hondas, BMWs and Renaults make up the majority of the grid, but there are also a few rarer touring cars, including this beautifully prepared Saab 9000.
We rescued it in 2016 from a guy that used to race it for many years, and it was in a bit of a sad state, bless it. And we raced it last year as it was, did the important stuff like the engine and the gearbox, and then over the winter months we've done the body work up and sort of made it look a bit more presentable for the crowd, really. We're enjoying it and it's good fun, and it's nice to see something that's slightly different than the norm out there, really.
Steve Barden and Ross Craig make it a Honda Civic front row lockout for this one, with the BMWs of David Hunt and Mike Dugdale just behind, while Roger Stanford and Trevor Keats complete the top 6 for the final race of the day. We're ready to launch straight into the final race of the day then. A good start for Mike Dugdale from the second row of the grid. The Hondas of Steve Barden and Ross Craig just in front. Who's going to get to the first turn in the lead? It's going to be 3 abreast there. The rest of the field filter their way through. The 2-3-4 Peugeot there of James Wilson, one of the front runners in the pre-05 category. A clean start by all. Mike Dugdale didn't get past the Hondas. In fact, he's going to lose a place here, I think, because David Hunt's BMW gets alongside. No, back down the inside comes Mike to regain 3rd place. There's contact here. Around goes the Honda Integra of Garry Barlow, also involved in that Steve Barber's Clio. Loads of cars go scattering left, right and centre to avoid it. And back on board with Mike Dugdale, having fended off David Hunt. He now gains 2nd place. That's down the inside of Ross Craig. Gains 1, loses 1, because back through comes David Hunt. Tremendous battling up front here. Steve Barden in the lead then. Hunt in 2nd, Dugdale 3rd. Ross Craig from 2nd down to 4th. Followed by Roger Stanford in 5th, and Luke Allen in the Honda Civic has made his way up from 9th to 6th. There's novice driver Nick Holmes in the Vauxhall Vectra. He's trying to close down upon Anna Barden in the Renault Clio as they make their way out now of Luffield and towards Woodcut Corner. So at the end of a frenetic first lap, Steve Barden has held on to the lead of the race from David Hunt's BMW. Mike Dugdale in the BMW running 3rd. Ross Craig in the white Honda Civic is next up. And then it is Roger Stanford, and just behind him, the quick starting Luke Allen. On board with him now as you make your way into the yellow flag zone. So no overtaking here due to the incident, or incidents, I think, that happened at the start of the race, because there was more than one thing going on there. A glimpse of Neil Bray's Clio in the gravel trap as David Hunt draws alongside now the Honda of Steve Barden to get his nose in front and move into the lead of the race. At the end of the Wellington Straight, they brake. And they're going to turn left now into Brooklands. Can the Honda come back at the BMW? No is the answer. So a new race leader, David Hunt, from 3rd on the grid at the end of the 2nd lap of the race. So Steve Barden won yesterday by 7 seconds in the qualification race on a drying track. Maybe the BMWs in the dry have a little bit more grunt. On board with Luke Allen now, and the 3rd of the Hondas in this league group being waved by Ross Craig. Thanks very much, he says. Well, they can have a conversation in a minute and a cup of tea as they make their way over the start-finish line. So it's BMW followed by Honda, BMW, and then 2 more Hondas. The BMWs are all contesting the pre-1993 division. The Hondas in this lead group all contesting the pre-2003 division. So, as Neil Bray's Clio is dragged by the rescue and recovery team from the gravel trap, while he may have lost the overall lead of the race, Steve Barden in second is still a class leader as you look back at Roger Stanford here, who's all over the back of Mike Dugdale as they come onto the back straight. Here in 7th and 8th places, the grey Honda of Peter Davis just ahead of the yellow machine of Trevor Keats. Back on board with Mike Dugdale. This is him charging down the inside of Steve Barden to gain 2nd place. On board with the former race leader now, but he's down to 3rd overall, still though leading his category, and he's still got 1 BMW in between him and his nearest class rival, which is going to be Luke Allen, a couple of seconds further back. Throughout the different categories, the racing today has been close, it's been hard, but it above all has been fair. A real credit to the drivers of the Classic Touring Car Racing Club as Steve Barden loses another place. That through is the BMW of Roger Stanford. So down to 4th place now for the former race leader. He did his best to fend off the BMWs, but it wasn't to be. Now replay of this incident at the start. That was the Integra of Garry Barlow just clipping the back of Steve Barber, enough to send both of them round. The Astra of Mark Finney amongst those who had to take to the grass in avoidance. Here's a replay on board with Garry Barlow. The door opens up, he tries to close down, just tags the back of the Clio, and around they both go. So the leaders starting to make their way through the traffic now. It's very, very close between Mike Dugdale and Roger Stanford for 2nd place overall. The rest of the Hondas staying in the same formation. They're from the front row of the grid, the 191 Ross Craig Honda Civic Type R. There we've got the 55 David Howard Jaguar XJ12, winner of the pre-83 division earlier on today. And that is the 171 Trevor Keats Honda Civic Type R. So those two running just inside the top 8. Back on board with Garry Barlow as he now tries to recover from that lap 1 incident. He draws alongside Alex Nuttall's VW and into Copse Corner. The Integra gains a place. Looks like there's no real damage to the car. Looking back from the 2nd place Mike Dugdale BMW, then at Roger Stanford, who keeps on showing his nose under braking. I think Mike Dugdale has a bit more straight line speed, but in the corners, Roger Stanford is right there with him. There then is Luke Allen running in 2nd place in terms of the pre-03s and still running in the top 6. And now James Wilson in the Peugeot, who was involved in all those incidents at the start and weaved his way through but lost loads of places, is about to get 2nd place in class back. That's Anna Barden's Clio that is just overtaken coming out through Copse Corner. So after a few laps of very quick lap times, the Peugeot through. There they are, 2nd and 3rd in class, and his next target now is going to be to try to close up to another Clio. None other than Steve Barber, who was also involved in the lap 1 shenanigans. 2nd and 3rd could barely be closer. The race leader, David Hunt, just starting to edge away now from this pair. Another BMW a bit further down the field is Andrew Sheraton, and he's now trying to fend off another of the cars involved in the lap 1 incident, Colin Gibbons, in the Alpha 156. Into the closing stages, and this is the battle for the pre-05 class lead. Steve Barber's Clio versus the recovering James Wilson in the Peugeot 206 GTI. He spent a couple of laps catching him, and now he spent about half a lap shadowing him, and now he's having a go, a big go. He runs alongside as they go to Maggots, but the right-hander coming up will favour the Clio. Through Beckett's they go, he lifts the rear wheel. They're going so late into that corner, absolutely neck and neck, but it's still just about Steve Barber in the Clio that stays ahead as Garry Barlow continues to carve his way back through the order. He's now up into 8th place overall, just behind the 7th place Jaguar of David Howard. So they're working their way through the traffic. There in 3rd place in the 05's Anna Barden, being passed as James Wilson goes for it around the outside here at Brooklands. He's got the inside line for Luffield, and the Peugeot goes through. Well, who'd have thought that? These two battling for the lead of the category after the start they both endured, but it's the Peugeot through. Into Luffield Corner for the final time. David Hunt is on course for a race victory. He's about 3 seconds clear of Mike Dugdale, who has had his mirrors full throughout the race of that bright red BMW of Roger Stanford. But the checkered flag is out, and it's victory for Hunt ahead of Dugdale and Stanford after a terrific day of racing. Overall victory and first place in the Envirotech Pre-93 touring cars goes to David Hunt, ahead of Mike Dugdale and Class C winner Roger Stanford. While 7th place outright was enough to give David Howard 4th place in the category, ahead of Class D winner Alex Nuttall and Andrew Sheraton.
Tried a little bit hard at the first, just needed to get him out of the way on the first lap. I know Roger Stanford and Dugdale will be trying hard with me. Once I got a gap, started to calm myself down. There was a few laps where they did actually start to catch me a little bit when I first met the traffic, because the traffic probably didn't realise I was going to be there quick. But it was a good race.
Category winner of the Your IT Man Pre-2003 touring cars was Steve Barden in 4th place overall. Luke Allen and Ross Craig take 2nd and 3rd in the group, ahead of Garry Barlow, Trevor Keats and Peter Davis.
It's close at the start, so the BMWs have got a lot more straight line speed, but we're obviously a lot more nimble and stuff through the corners, so we can actually stick with them throughout a whole lap. But it's just that straight line speed we're missing.
And finally, in the Toyo Tyres Pre-2005 saloons, James Wilson sealed victory with a great comeback drive, ahead of Steve Barber, Anna Barden, Ashley Parsons and Kevin Hadfield.
Had a good start, but going into Beckett's and Maggots, I was in the middle, 3 cars, hit both, and there was a crash up ahead, and I thought that was the end of my day. Managed to keep going, and once the tyres were up to temperature, I was able to put in some pretty good lap times actually. Suddenly the adrenaline kicked in, and I didn't just want to get to the finish, I wanted to win, and that's what happened. It was great.
And that's it from another hugely successful festival of classic touring car racing. The next event comes from Mallory Park. We'll see you there.